What's up YouTube, Saf here on Super Saf TV. Today I'm going to be talking about the Nikon D600 DSLR. Now it's just been announced today and it's the smallest full frame FX format DSLR from Nikon and it looks really good. And personally, I own the Nikon D800. If you're a regular on the channel, you'll already know. If you want to see a full review of the Nikon D800, hit the link here and you can check it out. But since the D600 has been announced today, a lot of people have asked me to do a bit of a comparison. Now obviously I can't do a comparison until I've actually got the camera in hand. However, I thought I could run through the specs and give you guys a better idea of the differences between the D600 and the D800. So let's get straight into it. To start off with, you've got the megapixels. Nikon, bigger megapixels obviously. You've got 24.3 megapixels FX format full frame CMOS sensor on the Nikon D600. Comparing that to the king of megapixels, shall we say, the Nikon D800 has 36.3 megapixels. So obviously you've got the difference there in megapixels. The D3200 has 24.2 megapixels, I believe. So in terms of that, from the entry level to this full frame, not a massive jump in terms of megapixels, but again, it really depends on what megapixels mean to you. Personally, having used the Nikon D800 for some time now, I personally, the big negative for me is the file sizes. They're huge, they're absolutely massive, and that just, you know, it's quite annoying for me. So then I personally wouldn't mind a 24 megapixel sensor for the work that I do, but some people do want those extra megapixels, so it's really up to you on that area, but not a huge deal for most people, I think. Looking at the autofocus, now you've got highly sensitive autofocus, 39 points AF system on the Nikon D600. The D800, 51 autofocus points. They work really well, and I've been using the Nikon for some time now, and I'm actually quite a fan of the Nikon autofocus system. It's very sharp and very accurate, so I'm pretty confident that on the Nikon D600 it'll be pretty good as well. Obviously you've got slightly less points, but I don't think that's a huge deal. ISO sensitivity, you've got 100 to 6400. Now that's the same on both the D800 and the D600. It may differ in performance when you've actually got it in hand and you're trying it out. I'm not too sure, but in terms of the specs, it's pretty much the same. You can expand it up to 25,600. Now, I don't know anybody who would use that. I don't know why you'd use that, because you'd start getting some serious grain into the image. So I personally wouldn't use it to that much of a high ISO anyway. Continuous shooting mode, you've got 5.5 frames a second on the Nikon D600 DSLR and 4 on the D800. Now this is one of the things that I know some people were not too happy about the D800, especially somebody who's doing sports photography, because you've only got the 4 frames a second, but you have to consider that these are massive files. It's 36.3 megapixels at 4 frames a second, which is pretty impressive if you think about it like that. But yeah, so you've got the additional, you know, 5.5 frames a second, which is not too bad. Okay, looking at the memory, you've got twin SD card slots for the Nikon D600. D800, you've got CF and an SD card slot. Now personally I prefer CF cards, compact flash cards, because I think they're slightly faster, especially for video, but SD cards are brilliant anyway, so I don't think that's a huge deal there in terms of the differences of cards. Looking at the video now, I've had a look through the specs, and generally speaking I think they're pretty similar. The D800, the D600 are pretty similar in terms of the video. I can't see any differences. Just to quickly run through the features, you've got 1080p at 24, 25 and 30 frames a second on both cameras, 720p at 50, up to 50 or 60 frames a second. You've also got the multi-area mode on both cameras, and that's the FX and DX based crop modes. So when you're filming, you can zoom in, well, you can crop in 1.5 times if you're using an FX lens. So you can switch to DX mode, go in 1.5 times crop, and that will bring you in close to the subject, which I find very useful when shooting video. If you wanna, if you don't understand it fully, then you can check out my review of the Nikon D800 again, and in there I've done an actual demo, so you can check it out on there. A link will be here somewhere. You've got the clean HDMI output. Now this is a big advantage that Nikon cameras have over Canon cameras, and this is also incorporated in the Nikon D600. So basically you can connect a HDMI cable to an external recording device such as an Atomos Ninja, and you can get a clean feed from the camera, and record at very high bit rates, and I know that's important for a lot of people. I've personally not tried it myself on the D800, but again, that's on both cameras as well. You've got the standard things like the headphone out and the mic in, which is pretty standard there as well. In terms of the weight, 760 grams versus 900 grams, not a massive difference, but this is obviously the D600 is smaller and lighter, so a bit more practical maybe. Not a huge difference really there as well. This is one point here, is the wireless transfer. Now, the Nikon's optional WU1B mobile adapter, little device which you can hook onto the D600. I'm not sure if it will be compatible with the other models as yet. And what that will allow you to do is wirelessly transfer those files to an Android device, either a tablet or a phone. And you can also remotely control certain features. Now, I have the WU1A, which is for use with the D3200 DSLR. You can see an unboxing here. I don't use it as much. I think the remote control feature is not great, but it is really good to transfer files directly off the camera. Okay, finally looking at the price now. This is very interesting because the body only for the Nikon D600 is £1,955 UK and $2,100 US. Now, I'm not sure why there's not that much of a gap between these, because obviously, you know, the exchange rate between dollars and pounds it would have been a bit more than that. Obviously, I know you've got the duty and the tax, etc., but usually there's a bit more of a bigger difference. In terms of the D800, I've just had a look at Amazon right now actually, and the price has actually dropped of the D800 down to $2,249.99. So in terms of pounds, that's not a massive difference between the two cameras. So really, I think it really depends on what you want to go for. Personally, I mean, you know, you could just spend a little bit more money and get a D800, which is a better camera in terms of the megapixels and things. So I don't know, it just really depends on what you want to go for. In terms of dollars, I think it's still around the $2,800, $3,000 mark. So in terms of dollars, I do think there's a bit of a gap between the D600 and the D800. So if you are thinking of going from an entry-level camera with a crop sensor to a full frame sensor, then the D600 is an absolutely great option for you, I think, when it's released. So to summarize, those were the key features. Not a huge difference between the two cameras, in my opinion. I mean, I think it really depends on your personal preference. Do you need the extra megapixels? Do you need the extra frames per second continuous shooting mode? I think that's what it really comes down to, because they are sort of similar. And obviously, as I mentioned, in terms of UK pricing, now that the D800 price has come down, there's not a huge difference. It's about £300 difference between the D600 and the D800. So as I said, it just really comes down to your personal preference. What are your views on the Nikon D600? Drop me a comment below, let me know. And if I do get hold of one, I will try to post a full review. So hopefully and I'll try to do a comparison video between the two as well, hands-on. We'll have a look at that. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, why not subscribe to the channel? Hit the button right here, really helps me out. And you can also get in touch with me on Facebook and Twitter. This is Saf on Super Saf TV, and I'll see you next time.